Hey Demand Force, welcome back to Tribe. So today we have a bit of a different video than what you usually see in Tribe. I've gathered a group of our lady leaders and got them onto a panel for us to ask them some questions. The video doesn't really need any introduction. It's pretty straightforward, but I want to give you some context. Just a couple of the people in the video, the women in the video are ASMs, sales dev managers, senior ASM, and then a current senior account executive who's moved her way up very quickly. So this is cool because it's getting a different point of view, and it's going to help us understand how they've gotten this far and what tactics they've used, how they've made their way up through the ranks, and enjoy.
This is your Lady Leader video, sponsored by Intuit Women's Network.
Alicia Fonseca, Sales Development Manager.
Kristen McKiernan, Senior Area Sales Manager, Lifestyle.
Joanna Knox, Area Sales Manager, Automotive.
Alyssa Masuda, ASM in Auto.
Michelle Herlock, Senior Account Executive, Lifestyle.
Gianna Friedman, Sales Development Manager.
A couple of you ladies were LDRs, moved on to an 8E role, and then eventually to a sales dev manager or ASM role. What was that like, and how did you achieve those different levels of success?
Okay, well, I'll go first. So a lot of us were actually LDRs before. Michelle, Alicia, and I never can imagine Kristen as an LDR. I always see her as my manager, but it was really exciting to start when it was a very small group of LDRs. Kind of just figuring everything out on our own. Just kind of everything's constantly changing. Now moving over into an AE role. I've always been in lifestyle. Recently moved over to the automotive division. Excuse me. But being an LDR, that work ethic that you learn, the calling, all of that really helps set you up to be a very successful AE is what I found. And transitioning into the manager position, I know it says manager at the end, but what I really enjoy about my job is, besides just coaching and motivating people, just finding my team's career path and what they really want to do at Demand Force, and what skills and values that they can set themselves up with here that they can use in their next position.
Cool. Kristen?
Yeah, sure. So I started as an LDR. I've been here for about 4.5 years. So started as LDR.
Right.
I was LDR for about
Back
13 months.
Yeah.
Very long time.
Oh my gosh.
Things were set up a little bit differently then as well, right? So you go from a small startup to being a Intuit company. So there are a lot of changes within the organization as well. But I mean, the job for me is I just had my sight set on, getting it to the next level. So it's really about, when we mentioned about work ethic, coming in and doing your job and doing it well. And I really just put my head down. I didn't socialize probably as much as I do now, or I really think that's an important piece of work-life balance. But I just put my head down and just worked my tail off. And good things happen when you do that. And I think if you have a positive attitude and you understand that this is the hard work that you're doing now, but it's going to pay off if you just continue on that path. And so I feel super fortunate to be able to be now managing people who are LDRs and have moved over to AEs, and understand that it's a tough job, you know, and saying like, hey, we can get through this, we're in it together. And it's really about the people. It's not about the numbers. Yeah. I'm a competitive person, not maybe as much as some other people, but it's really like competitive with myself. And I think if you hold yourself to a high standard, that can be even more of a challenge. Yeah. And so I just, I've had a lot of different roles here, and I just love it, and I'm looking forward to what's next.
Michelle, you were LDR to AE. How do you think that the fundamentals, the basics, help you get from that position to the next?
I'm going to preface this with, I think the point of this video is for all of you watching to take advantage of the things we're saying. We're not sitting here giving each other high fives. And I think across the board, people are gonna, in this room, say hard work, hard work, hard work, and people might be rolling their eyes right now. I think the difference is you can come into work without a why and hit the phones, make fake dials, do all the things you think are right. I think the difference, like for me, was being smart about the way that I worked and taking advantage of my resources. I say this all the time. When I was an LDR, I walked into Mike Bonnett's office at like 3 months in and was like, help me with my goals. I want to be an RGM in a year. What do I have to do to get there? In 2 years, what do I have to do to get there?
Right.
And I'm not saying everybody do that, but that was what helped me. And I wiggled my way around and figured out what I needed to do. And a lot of it was hard work, but a lot of it was I woke up with a purpose every day and with a why. Starting as an LDR to a senior AE now, I still do the same exact thing, and it makes work more enjoyable, and it helps in being successful. So.
I think it's a really good point that Michelle just made, and I hate the term piggyback off of it, but really a couple of things that she said that really should stick out to everybody who's watching this video is, number one, it takes some, let's use the word guts, to walk into the vice president of sales office and say, this is where I want to be in 2 years, and let's do it. I think that all of us have had the experience of AEs or LDRs or people coming up to us before and asking for advice, but then not applying the advice.
That's true.
And applying what people are giving to you is probably the number one thing. If Michelle hadn't applied the advice, she certainly wouldn't be here today, and that would have been a huge waste of resources for Mike as well.
That's great advice.
And she's a shining example of it. So write your goals down, then tell Mike Bonnet or Michelle Herlock that you want to achieve them.
Do it.
Execute.
But really, anybody's willing to help you if you're willing to execute on some sort of road plan, right?
Alicia and Gianna, you moved from producing roles to non-producing roles. You're coaching now. What was that transition like, and how did you make the switch?
How did I make the switch?
Yeah. From cold calling to closing deals, and now having to take on someone else and coach them and send them off on their way, and hope that those things that you've taught them will show through when they're cold calling and when they're selling.
I think it's funny. It's a very selfless role, but it really makes you appreciate people. And I think the coolest thing about it is that the people that we find most successful, basically we do all of our rep does well, and everyone works differently. And being an AE was such a selfish role that at first I was like, I came home from work feeling a different type of exhaustion, but it wasn't like I was physically exhausted from making all these dials. It was more of like, I'm exhausted because I found out so much about so many different types of people today, and I would think about them every night and think about different ways that I can coach them to make them a sustainable rep here. And that was the adjustment. It's the best, I think, transition that I have ever made, probably ever will make, and it's the most rewarding position I've ever had.
That's such a good point, because when I was an AE, the whole goal was to hit as many bookings as anything and everything I could to contribute to the overall team. So as long as I focused on myself, in the end I would be contributing to this larger grand scheme of things. Whereas now, my biggest contribution is not getting someone to get a ton of deals, which obviously would be great if that does happen, but to really motivate and inspire people, whether they're still under me or when they even leave. Because sometimes they can get discouraged on the floor. So motivation and inspiration is like the key, like the biggest thing that's so different. Like before it was just getting me up in the morning and getting motivated to close something, but I have to even exert that even more so that someone can be inspired by it.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
That's so true. That's so in all positions that we're in, really.
Yeah.
Right? And even you, Michelle, because you're training and coaching our team. So it's just, it's different. Everyone's motivated and inspired by different things. And so really finding out what inspires one rep over the other. And it's really interesting, and it could be, it's great. You can be really powerful too. It's awesome.
We work in an obviously male-dominated company. So the women in this room it's a much smaller group than if you were to put all the male leaders into a room. Has that affected you when you've been working at Demand Force? And if it has, how so? And that can be answered in a multitude of different ways. So
I'll start. For me, no, because personally, and maybe I speak for myself, but I've always been okay, having male leaders. I've always gotten along with guys a little better than girls, as Gianna might tell you, from our rough start. But I think I also didn't really know who to go to if I did feel like I needed a female voice. And I think that's maybe why we're in this room, is letting people know that there are people that were here. I certainly didn't have that as an LDR, nor did I even know who I would go to. Like, approaching Kristen McKiernan, like, no, like, would not have known to even be able to do that at the time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I kind of, that's the point I wanted to make.
Not to mimic Joanna on the piggyback thing, because I do hate that. For lack of a better term, to piggyback on that, I think sometimes we're so comfortable with male leaders because that's all we know. And for someone, I've actually had 2 women ASMs in my time here, which would be Nicole Dre and Allison Pavlock. And then in addition to that, Liz Baker was my NSM.
Okay.
And so to have that experience, I feel really grateful to have it because it's different. Like, it's different to see someone who made it there, and she's the only woman among 7.
Yeah.
Right? And it's funny because when you have a woman leader like that, they require so much more of you because they know how hard it is for them to have gotten there, and they want to see you there too. And unfortunately, sometimes you have to work a little harder to get noticed.
Sure.
I think it makes you execute. I mean, I respond very well to male or female leadership. That's not really important, but I think even when I was selling there, you have to prove yourself, right? So it's all about how you execute. And I think you made an excellent point. You have to execute smartly, but also quickly. And I think because there's that pressure of not having a large amount of female leadership, it makes us execute very quickly and also smartly, and you get results that way.
That's a great point. So with there being a small amount of lady leaders in the workplace, obviously or identifying a female mentor can be difficult. So Alyssa, have you had a male mentor, a female mentor? Has it been a demand force outside the workplace? What's your experience been?
So I have the only female manager I've ever had is actually Kristen McKiernan. And her and I worked together at the very end of me being an AE, moving into an ASM position. Before that, my mentor is a male. He does work at Demand Force. And he just pushed me really, really hard every day. And it was always something that were frustrating back then to me was there's greatness in you. We just have to get to that next level and trying to identify what that was and how to get myself there. Working with Kristen, what I really value about Kristen is she's very direct. She is not afraid to speak her mind. And it's something that I will always say to any woman or anybody in the workplace is you need to be able to speak up, and it's something I need to work on every single day. But Kristen is also a mentor of mine that I look to for advice on how to coach somebody or what maybe the next step is in even my personal life. She's so helpful in many ways, so it's really nice that I got to work with her very closely and be able to do that and be able to have somebody to look to professionally and personally.
Thank you. That's awesome. I think, mentors are extremely important. I really try to do a better job at making sure that I have a mentor in my life, and also being a mentor helps with that as well. I've recently, over the last month, I reached out to someone who I had met at a leadership event and asked her to have lunch, and she's now my mentor, and she's super excited about meeting with me once a month. I have mentors in some of my good friends, and I think just us in this group, it's nice to have someone that you can go and talk to, that you can share your goals with. And so it's something that we've really talked about a lot, and having a mentorship program through the Intuit Women's Network. So it's something that we're working on, and I'd love to get more mentors, and I just think it's really important. And if they're male or female, it's nice to have a female mentor and maybe a male mentor.
Sure.
I think for me, being in a very sales dominant position here at Demand Force, being mostly males, the previous job I was in was mostly males as well. There were no female sales managers.
Yeah.
My best friend was the first female sales manager, so it was nice to have that, something to look forward to, or just know that it's possible, having someone that that believes in you. So I think that it's a really important thing to have. And
Joanna, you were an AE and moved into an ASM role in auto.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that at the time that you were coming up through the ranks, were there any female leaders?
In auto?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No,
So
it's a pretty male-dominated industry.
yeah.
But we got Alyssa. So.
So
Yeah.
who did you look up to when you were coming up?
I was really, really fortunate, right? My first RGM was a guy who was a brand spanking new RGM. He'd been promoted from LDR to AE, kind of crashed as an AE, and now then went to RGM, and then was an RGM for a couple of quarters, and then went to development, and is now an NSM, who's John Tucker. So I was very, very fortunate to have that experience. He and Kristen McKiernan came up as LDRs together. So I was exposed to Kristen very early on,
Okay.
and then my other mentor would be. This is not supposed to be about mentors. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Edit that. David Tolkien.
No one's
All right. So
David.
So for those who don't know who David Tolkien is.
David Tolkien was an AE.
Someone steal my chair?
What an idiot.
So David Tolkien was an AE, then an RGM, then a NSM, and then the BD for automotive. That was Brian. 'Cause you don't need to know about Brian. And actually, Kristen McKiernan was David Tolkien's LDR back in the day. And he was not the easiest guy in the world to work for. He expected a lot of you, and you knew that you were doing well when he would like ping you stuff on the weekends. When you would get like, text messages from him at like, there's no joke, right? Like 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday, hey, I know that you're like in Cancun, however, can you just call this guy for a referral? Like stuff like that, then you knew you were doing a good job for him. And if you weren't getting those from him, then you pretty much knew that he wasn't looking at you. And if he wasn't looking at you, nothing was gonna happen. Right? So I think being exposed to Kristen, being exposed to people who just did more, kind of makes you want to do more because, I mean, you, right? Like I used to look at you on the leaderboard and be like, yeah, frankly, like, what is she doing? Like she's just always at the top, right? So you look at things like that, and it's not necessarily a competition thing. It's like I've said it in our vertical before. Alyssa's a huge example, right? I remember like the first time I ever got pitted against Alyssa in one of those bracket things, I just wanted to shoot myself in the head. I honestly could have just written her a check for Spotlight right then and there. It was just so ridiculous.
We were both very scared.
Very
I think we wanted
scared.
to get people who didn't work.
We wanted people who didn't work.
I didn't close
And we
deals.
didn't get that. And then Alyssa won. Put it out there, won. Roundly won. So I'm just saying, right? So I think there are a lot of women out there, but I think Kristen's point was really, really salient when she said you have to ask for mentors.
Yeah.
They're not going to come up to you.
Yeah.
They're not
It'd
gonna
be a
volunteer.
little uncomfortable too.
Yeah,
Right? Just to
yeah.
go ask. But if you don't ask, I mean, it's just like the business, right? If you don't ask for it, you're not going to get
What's
it.
the worst that's gonna happen?
worst
They're gonna
Yeah,
say
say
no.
no.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Like, that's the
You
thing
move
about
on, yeah.
the LDR role. You learn to take rejection really well.
Yeah.
So true.
And no one's going to say no. Like that's the thing.
They're not.
Yeah.
no
You're
one's
not going to walk up
say
to Alyssa and be like,
So-
hey, do you mind taking 15 minutes out? She's going to be like, I don't have 15 minutes. She's going to be
So
jazzed.
message here is
Absolutely.
seek out a mentor.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
So what is the one piece of advice you would give an LDR or an AE that's seeking that out?
My piece of advice is to work as hard as you possibly can and give it your all. I strongly believe that if you work incredibly hard and give it your all every single day, you make it more and more difficult for failure to be an option. So that's something that my mom says to me. I'm one of 6 kids, and anytime I call her with a complaint, she goes, "Oh, you'll be fine because you always figure it out." And the way I always figure it out is just always working hard and giving it my all, and then I barely fail.
All right.
Awesome. I would say know what you want, know your goals, be focused on them, work towards them every day. We're not going to all be perfect every day. We fail, and that's okay. But know what you want, stay focused on it, work hard. I would say the biggest thing for me is have a good attitude. Like that's the number one thing.
Amen.
Is don't complain about things. There's nothing that any of us in this room, in this office, in this can complain about. It's
Yeah.
just it's silly to me. So think about what you say before you say it, and have a good attitude. Be the person that you want to be sitting next to in a work
Awesome.
environment.
That was really good advice.
That was good advice.
Yeah.
I'd say, just do the next right thing. We're all like Kristen said, like we'll say, you're you're gonna make mistakes. Just get up every day and do the next right thing.
Yeah.
Just remember that every day is the day that you're interviewing for that next position. You know?
It's great advice too. Liz?
Absolutely. I would say speak confidently, stand up for yourself in a professional manner, as well as broaden your network. So with women, with men, that you can always reach out and get to know other people and find out what's going on so that you can reach out to them if you ever need help.
No, I'm not trying to get kudos with Brad Smith by my answer, and I know this is going to sound whatever.
This goes
Networking,
out to you,
honey.
Brad.
And I know this, is going to sound cliche, but honestly, it's be bold. And I've said this before, that can mean something different for every person in this room. That can mean something really different for everyone watching this video. My be bold is wake up with a purpose every day. Sometimes we don't want to get out of bed. Sometimes we don't want to go to work. Sometimes we roll in hungover, Sometimes things happen. But as long as I'm being bold in some way every day that I'm at the office, no matter what that means, that is my piece of advice. Find your boldness, whatever that may be, capture it, and wake up with it every single day.
And finally.
Mine is act as if. Act as if you have the promotion you want. Act as if you are approaching the end of month tomorrow. Act as if you have a goal in 3 months and that 3 months is right now. If you act and execute in the moment, it's setting yourself up for success, and you're, again, never gonna fail.
That's great.